Good morning, everybody. It's KB5MIQ Big Boy. Will be kind of a rambling video today. A few subjects I want to touch on for a little while this morning. Number one, a lot of the things that you see now with social media has made it a bazillion times more easy for people to complain or browbeat or whatever you want to call it, other ham radio operators. Some of my earlier videos, I mentioned some of the things that were said to me in the early 90s before social media about my not really wanting to learn Morse code and I couldn't learn it due to hearing issues, could have upgraded, didn't do it, things like that. Social media has made that a million times worse. People, we've got to keep this hobby going and welcome new cams in it and trashing them, running them down, telling them they're asking stupid questions, telling them they should have learned it in their test don't help anything. All right? Person asks a question, just try to give them an answer. Don't give them your history of ham radio. Don't tell them they're answering the wrong question. Don't go on a tangent on a completely different subject unrelated to the question. Things like that. I'll give you a good example. Saw a post on a page the other day. What are the brand names of PL259s? Most everybody put down Amphenol. Good response, good answer. Well, then one guy chimes in and says, you need to get out of the old days and come into modern times and use end connectors. Really? All the guy asked was what brand was PL259s. Then he proceeded to tell him that he should have his SO239s on the back of his radios changed to N-type connectors and this long thing. And I'm not going to say that the guy might be able to prove he's right with lower loss or whatever, but unless you got scientific equipment to prove it, the guy on the other end ain't going to know what kind of connector you're hooked up to. And SO239s and PL259s have been used for a long, long time. So, good example of an answer that does not relate to the question. So please, stop browbeating these guys for new hams. Also, the guys who want to use one of these. I got two of them. I guarantee you, if I get on a repeater and talk to you, you don't know whether I'm talking on this thing or an ICOM because I'm probably not going to tell you unless you ask. So there's no use in running these things down to people. Man, I've been on a budget my whole life. I'd give anything in the 90s to have been able to buy a $30 talkie that was a dual band talkie. The first one I bought was $200 and didn't work near as good as this one does. So it's don't run them down for doing that. And there's complaints about people buying them that aren't licensed. Well, they know they're not supposed to operate unless they're licensed. You can't stop them from buying them. The only way that will ever stop is if they make you show a ham ticket before they sell you the merchandise. And the companies ain't going to put up with that because they're in there to make a profit. So don't worry about it. I mean, if you hear somebody bootlegging, you know the proper procedures for taking care of that. So anyway, talking about QSL, DX, things like that now. I've been making some pretty good contacts. In fact, I just made Czech Republic on 17 meters a few minutes ago. I had to wait, and I've talked about this before. If you're not running an amp and you're probably on a dipole like I am, you're not going to be the loudest guy on the frequency. So I just sat there and waited, tried to listen to how he was taking calls. It took me about 15 minutes, but he picked me up, 57 signal report, same I had on him, about a 5x7 signal report. Made the contact, got his QSL card ready to send to him now. QRZ makes that a lot easier because all the information's there. If they need a couple of bucks for postage, whatever, that's great. You know that up front. I keep the international forever postage stamps to send them over there. And I have started doing something now with all my QSL cards, even stateside. If I really want the card, if it's stateside, I include a self-addressed stamped return envelope. All the guys got to do is fill his card out and send it to me. Overseas calls, I usually put a couple of bucks in the envelope with a stamped return envelope. One time I put a international stamp on there, but I got thinking their country might not use that, so I just minimum $2 in there, send it to them, and have a good luck getting the cards back. And send people a card. Get you some cards printed up, and send people a card. That's one great thing about the hobby. I enjoy getting them. And I saw a QSL card page the other day where a guy had got a card. It was just an index card. The guy had filled the information out and wrote him a little nice note on there. Hey, that's great. You know, we all like to see picture cards. I've got picture cards made myself, but the man put a lot of thought into that card, and I'm glad he sent that kind of card out. And I'd be honored to get one like it. Stations calling CQ. I've gotten to where if I've got the state, I'll listen, and if people are answering him, I won't interfere with the call because I've got a card from the state. He's getting contacts. Same with countries. Brazil and South America must have a lot of operators in it because I hear lots of Brazil stations, and I've got several cards from Brazil. But if I hear somebody stateside or overseas call CQ 3 times and nobody answers them, I'll answer them on the third time whether I've worked the country or not. Man's trying to make contact, make the contact for him. I always do that. Try not to bust up a QSO going on, but if somebody calls CQ 3 times, even if I've got the country or the state and they're not getting a response, I'll answer them because I know what it's like to call CQ and not get a response. Getting back on our hobby and keeping it, everybody realized that this hobby was never set around for us to sit and talk to other people around the world just for fun. It was originally set up to keep a trained pool of radio operators that had their own equipment available for emergencies. The sideline of us getting to use the bands for fun is just a sideline of it. That's what the hobby was intended for. I kind of liken us keeping this hobby similar to the fight to keep the Second Amendment, with the exception of this. Second Amendment's in the Constitution. Ham radio's not. This was set aside. There's a lot of competition now for our bands from commercial sources. So we need to keep the hobby going. We need to be good ambassadors of the hobby. And we don't need to bash new hams that's coming in. You know, help them out. You know, I've said this on every video. You look me up on QRZ, my email address there, send me a message. I will try to help you get an answer. And I promise you, I will not be a derogatory answer. So, one other thing, W5DLX and WD5HKV, as myself we're planning on for sure setting up a field day station next summer. Excuse me, I don't have the corona. Just got a little sinus problem. Excuse me. But we found out about a winter field day, January 30, 31. We're thinking about setting up for that. So there's some ideas for people, especially people that maybe just live in the city or the suburbs that don't have farms and extra tools and crap laying around like we do out here in the country. But if you're going to work a field day, it's also kind of you to set up in case you have to do an emergency. So you need to think about things you've got laying around to help you set up an emergency, like power. How are you going to power your radios? W5DLX, he camps a lot. He's doing some different operations with some batteries that he's having real good luck with, but he likes to camp and take his radio portable. Now, if you'll notice, back of every one of our power supplies, all the power are lugged, where you got a nut, you usually put a ring terminal on your cord, and there you go. But if you've got to run off a battery, how are you going to attach it to the battery? Well, get you some higher amperage alligator clips. You can get them in any automotive supply store to put on your power cable. Or, in a pinch, a simple C-clamp. As long as you don't let this touch other metal, you can C-clamp your lead right to the post, and you're good to go. That'll work in an emergency. For field expedient use, you just have to be aware that you can't let this touch anything on the hot side or it'll ground out. Another thing a lot of people may not think of, simple double SO239 barrel connector. You may have to extend your coax if you have to move to a different location. And if you've already got coax made up, you'll need a way to join them together. Keeping a couple of these on hand It'll help you out a lot. And by all means, black tape. Always keep that on hand. So go ahead and be thinking about operating in an emergency. I've done it once. I actually got to do that one time. I took a battery out of a boat, mentioned earlier video, set it in the house. Took 2 meter out of my truck, set it in the house where I could stay warm. Put some alligator clips on the leads, clipped it to the battery, put the radio on low power. The repeater I had to use to relay with was a wide coverage repeater, so I could hit it on 5 watts real easy and run for 2 weeks relaying information for the local fire department to DPS during the ice storm of 2000. So I was able to do that one time. That always helps to be available. And once you do that for people, they'll remember it. It remembers the hobby, and it puts the hobby in a real good light. So anyway, that's about all I can cover for today. I've got a few errands to run. Gonna try to make another couple of contacts. Glad to see 10 meters opening up. We still do our nightly roundtable on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday nights as a rule. And we're usually on 28,450 unless the band is open. Somebody's already got the frequency. We'll be 3 or 4 kilocycles either side of it. So just look us up. We want people to check in on it. We enjoy that. That's one thing HKV and I did back in the 90s, and we've got DLX in there with us now. And every once in a while, this happened 3 or 4 times since we've got this started up, we've had people from other states chime in with us. So if you hear us on there about 7:45 to 8 o'clock Central Standard Time, please check in because we enjoy it. Do everything you can to promote the hobby. If a person asks a question, try to answer it sensibly without being derogatory. Help people out staying into this. And remember, there's many avenues of this thing. There's so many avenues we've got to enjoy this hobby. One person likes to do a certain thing, and all they can afford to get into is a talkie and work on 2-meter repeater. That's fine. They're a ham radio operator. Anyway, thanks to everybody who subscribed to the channel. If you like what I'm doing, leave me a like, leave me a comment, give us a subscription. We appreciate it. This is KB5 MIQ Big Boy 73.